Good morning. You are listening to 91.9 FM, WDRT in Viroqua, Wisconsin. This is the Heart of Wellness show with hosts Drs. Paul and Paula Grenier. Today's guests are Joyce and Barry Vissell. They are co-authors of 2 books, To Really Love a Woman and To Really Love a Man. They have been together for 53 years, 49 years in marriage, and they're telling us it's working.
Well, and they're author of more than 2 books.
Correct.
2 of their recent books.
Yes, sorry.
They are famous for their Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus book.
No,
they're famous for... I'm sorry, that's John Gray. I know. We love John, too, so it's all good.
Dr. Paul, you're reading off the back.
I know.
recommendation.
I do it better.
No, they wrote The Shared Heart.
Of course.
Which we
I
love.
know that.
Silly you.
I know.
So thank you for joining us again. I think about a year ago you joined us on the show, and we had a beautiful conversation.
And we are coming off a pretty rough Valentine's weekend or day. So it just was the day before that was rough. But the beauty of that is we know that we are not going anywhere, and we have since made up. So it's perfect to be able to know that you got to work through stuff, and the more you work through stuff, the more you get to love. And but we'd like to get rid of that stuff, so maybe we ought to just do a therapy session today on the air. It could be easy.
Get real vulnerable. But I do appreciate if our listeners could see these books. I just want to kind of give them a visual. From the one I'm holding is To Really Love a Man, and it shows some beautiful snow-covered mountains in the background with some beautiful green evergreen trees in the front with looks like a river running by it. And Paul,
it's Alaska.
It's Alaska. Okay. And what does yours look like, Paul?
Well, I have a triple waterfall coming down, and with a gorgeous greenery around it. Where would that be?
That's Hawaii. It's on the road to Hana, Hawaii, in Maui.
And these 2, they told us off the air that they just got back from a week-long retreat in Hawaii with couples, and Paul and I are gonna. We better get on that bandwagon.
So you were in Hawaii through Valentine's. You just got back recently, not through Valentine's, but near Valentine's.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, just 3 days ago we got back.
Wow. Well, nice. Well, we better watch out for that next year, Paul. Maybe we should plan to be somewhere else besides home.
So that's our passion, working with couples. We do other retreats as well, but we love working with couples because I don't know what happened to you on Valentine's Day, but that's part of being in a really good relationship is that things come up, you have harder days, and you work through them, and in the working through them, there's always more love. There's always a gift in every hard time. And these couples that we worked with, not every single couple, but over half, were working through some really, really big things. And they beautifully got to the other side through a process of being really vulnerable with each other and also taking responsibility. So I just want to share that going through a hard time is nothing to be ashamed of. It just means that your relationship is vital and growing. It's not stagnant, and it's the couples that don't ever argue or never go through a hard time. Those are the couples that we worry about because it's not a growing relationship then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got some pretty big plants in our house then because we're doing a lot of growing.
No, but you could liken it to the sequoia trees, right? Don't they need those big fires to stimulate growth for their longevity?
They do.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're up by those trees. So you know that, or near that area. So it's I'm excited to again have you all kind of give us a little. I don't know what you want to tell us about your books. I've started mine, and I'm enjoying it. And Paul
maybe if I would have actually opened mine, to really love a woman and and read a little bit, I might have got into trouble that I did the other day.
To your credit, he's deep into another book he really needs to finish before he starts. So
I
it's not like you're avoiding
I
it.
just finished it,
Yeah.
so it's perfect.
So now he can delve into it after this.
Let me start with something also. Really, a deep premise of both of these books is what we're looking at the golden rule. Okay, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's a beautiful rule, but it doesn't work for intimate, like close, romantic, intimate relationships. Because, we've come up with a new rule, and it's called the platinum rule. It's do unto others as they would have you do unto them. In other words, here's an example, okay? In the area of appreciation, it's very typical for men, and this is not all men, but a lot of men will appreciate a woman for what they do, because that's what they want. They want to be appreciated for what they do. But the woman might want to be appreciated for who she is, her kindness, her intelligence, her loving, something like that. And the same on the other side, the woman who's appreciating the man for who he is, it feels good, that's fine, but he needs perhaps to be appreciated for what he does also. So it's finding out what your partner needs. That's the platinum rule.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. It's similar to, or we know the 5 love languages, and we have followed that through our life and understanding our own children and friends to how do you connect with them? It's basically like speaking the language, right? So it's with a couple, that language, the longer you're together, if you're committed, the more you would understand that language. Hopefully,
You'd hope, right?
But you see, it's not something that you can be psychic about. You need to communicate, and you need to ask. Sometimes all you need to do is ask your partner what they're needing, and then give them the time and listen to hear what they're needing.
Yeah, and it can change. I mean, just because you asked them a year ago, it can change because your partner may have changed, and there might be something going on in their personal life that they need, a different kind of appreciation. So it's important to not keep doing the same thing, but just keep up leveling the appreciation.
well, that would be almost the definition of every failed marriage, or wouldn't it be? I mean, it's like you get stagnant because you're doing the same old. You're not making an effort, maybe, or you're not listening, or you're just not understanding. Probably more than
Or you're
anything.
assuming. We know what that does for everybody. Assuming something. Right?
So it takes quite an effort.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, also, failed marriages. I mean, what we see mostly is that the needs aren't being met, and so either the man or the woman, starts seeking outside of the relationship, and sometimes it's more like an innocent thing. It's like an emotional connection, but that emotional connection deepens into a secretive, confidential, emotional relationship, and then sometimes that can go into a sexual relationship, and both those hurt our relationship so much, both the emotional relationship with another person and also the sexual relationship. So it's going outside of the marriage that I think causes the most problems. I don't have any percentages, but it's just what we see. Would you want to add to that, Barry?
No, you're right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, people don't understand that emotional affairs are actually just as painful, sometimes more painful than a physical sexual affair.
Yeah. It can be more more painful.
Yeah.
So, but it's just going outside of the beauty and the strength of the commitment and the bond of the married couple.
Well,
That, if two people are really, really, really wanting to work back and come back together, they can. But it takes a big commitment to come back together again.
Yeah.
well,
But they can do it.
yeah. To me, it would be describing, are you present, right? Are you present in that relationship, or an emotional relationship? You're tuned somewhere else, right? Your heart is somewhere else. Your mind is somewhere else. So there's no way that healing can happen in your own relationship if you're somewhere else. If it's just purely a sexual relationship, in a way, it might not be as damaging while it's happening, because you can still be present in your relationship and take a break every now and then. I mean, I'm simplifying it in a way, but what I'm hearing is that basically you're not committed / you're not present in your current relationship.
Right. And this comes from, lack of vulnerability with your partner. And that's, so often what it boils down to in every workshop we do, and in these new books, To Really Love a Man, To Really Love a Woman. Really, one of the core pieces is about vulnerability. When we're just showing our partner our strength, it's almost like we're putting our hand out and pushing our partner away. But when we can really reveal our sadness, our pain, our fear, men or women, to reveal what you're afraid of, it allows your partner then to come close to you. And this is so important for a relationship.
I love what Barry said, and I want to give an example that kind of ties into what we're talking about right before Barry shared that. We were working with a couple, and the man had both. We had a very, very, very deep emotional affair. I'm not sure the extent of the sexual part, but the deep emotional part was known. And he was going to lose his wife of 13 years. She had a lot of walls around her. And we met with them, and we urged him to be vulnerable. It was very difficult for him, and finally, I think he realized he was going to lose this amazing woman who was his wife, and he just started sobbing. And he told her things he should have told her a long, long time ago. How she is his family. She's he just doesn't even know how he could possibly live without her. And all this love and poured out of him in his vulnerability, and it was in that she was able to open to him for the first time in 6 months. She was able to open to the possibility that their relationship could maybe work. So they still have a lot of work to do, but it was that raw vulnerability without all the defenses and the anger, without all of that, and just the depth of the pain and the vulnerability.
And of course, it wouldn't have worked had he not ended the affair. If he was still involved with the other woman, none of the vulnerability would help, of course.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share something on a different note, and it's in both of the books, the How to Really Love a Woman and How to Really Love a Man, and that is about choosing your partner over and over and over again, and letting your partner know that you would marry them in a moment again. And that's a really, really beautiful thing, because a lot of people feel that their partner maybe feels that they're stuck with them. They have kids, they own a home, they're financially intertwined. But a lot of people feel that if there was suddenly a total freedom, that their partner would actually choose to be with someone else. So when one of the partners looks and says, "I would choose you all over again. I would have a wedding all over again. You're the one I want to be with." That's the most beautiful way to really. It's one of the most beautiful ways to love and deepen a relationship. I bet you know. I bet you have another one, Barry.
No, that's beautiful. Go ahead, Paul and Paula. Maybe you have something.
Well, I do, because the greatest day of my life was when Paula surprised me with a re-wedding. And it followed a pretty rough time in our life, and some pretty rocky waters, and we had already chosen to recommit to ourselves. Not necessarily in those words, but we definitely had got to a much smoother space, and the river had smoothed out, and we were feeling pretty good. But that day, we had just the most beautiful wedding, and it was a complete surprise to me. And it to this day, which was many years ago now, is still my favorite day of my life. And I really think, and maybe we need to do it again. I don't know. But it's, it doesn't necessarily have to be that formal, but the process, I just love that. You don't hear that too often. In fact, to say, hey, not just I love you and I appreciate you, but I'd choose you again.
Yeah, and it was my personal struggle emotionally at first. And then when we, got some counseling and realized that, okay, we cleared some things. I just really wanted Paul to know that I do want to choose. I do want you to know how strongly that I want to renew our vows. I mean, the first wedding was so much fun. Let's do it again anyway. But it was really for him to know that I asked him, "Will you remarry me again? Will you marry me again?" And it was a pretty sweet moment. And I couldn't believe we pulled off the surprise in this town, because it's a small town. But people kept their secret with me, and everybody knew but Paul in this town practically that this was happening. And he just went along for the ride, and it was a beautiful, fun moment. Yeah, and some people have even seen it out on the web, because somebody put a little footage together about it. It's called Surrender, I think, right? It's called Surrender. It's under the Viroqua website or something. I don't know. But so anyway, it's a really beautiful moment, but it really, that's where it stemmed from. Just what you're saying, Joyce, so choosing your partner over and over again. And I just really wanted him to see that I'm really in it. And, I had some struggles there, and I was going through my midlife crisis, whatever. And I just really wanted him to know that I want you to be my partner. Are you in? Will you take me again? So,
it is so, you go back and I see different relationships that are no longer together. It's that moment, everybody has all these rough moments. It's like, how do you get through them? Like, if you can show yourself, and this also happened to us. This was pre-wedding, is when one of our therapy sessions we saw the pain the other person was going through, and it's like, oh wow, where you see that vulnerability, and it can open your own heart to love them again, and it's a necessary thing if you're going to be in a long-term relationship, to see and experience with your partner their struggles they go through. Because if you're together 53 years, obviously it's not a flat road, right? It's you got to move through the valleys, and you got to climb the mountains, and get on different roads, and it's not an easy navigation, but it is so worth it. And another piece of a world that is so worth it is our relationship, a love relationship we have with our listeners and our community. We appreciate you, and we would choose you again, too. Thank you for choosing WDRT 91.9, The Heart of Wellness.
Yes, and our guests today are Joyce and Barry Vissell. They are co-authors of many books, but we're focusing today on their newest books called To Really Love a Man and To Really Love a Woman. And could you, the two of you, give us a website if people wanted to connect with you more or look about on your books here, what website they could go to?
Yes, our website is sharedheart.org. Sharedheart.org. And there's hundreds of articles for anybody who wants to read,
Wow.
as well as information about our programs and our books.
It's like the love library.
Yes, it is. So can I bring up something else? Something else that another important part of these books is to be able to access the child part of your partner and the child in yourself. You know, it's the inner child work that is so vital. If we only relate as adults and ignore that there's a little child inside, we get into trouble, because then, you know, it's like any child. If a child's ignored, it has to act out or have a temper tantrum. So, and I want to share that, we were talking about affairs before. Early in our marriage, after 7 years, I had an affair with Joyce's best friend, actually. And this was so painful for Joyce, and she left. And what I learned, that was a turning point in our relationship, because up until that point, I had been denying that there was a little boy inside of me that needed Joyce. She used to come to me and say, "Barry, I really need your love. Don't you need mine?" And I'd say, oh my goodness, and this was not very humble, but I'd say, "No, I don't need you. I love you and I choose to be with you, but I don't need you." And this was, you can see this created a big conflict. And it was really the reason I had the affair, to prove that I didn't need Joyce. But then she left, and the pain hit me like a ton of bricks, and I got to, for the first time, have this experience that there's also a little boy inside of me. And that little boy really needs Joyce, just the way a child needs a mother. If we deny that part of ourselves, we can't really go into the deepest place of intimacy. So on the other side, for us to see the little child in our partner and be able to mother or father that child, this is healthy relationship. And people are afraid of this. They're afraid of admitting their own need of a little child, and they're afraid to see the child in your partner.
Well, one thing is it'll help you behave more in a relationship, meaning how do you speak, right? If you can see the child behind the adult body and the adult being that you've sometimes can get too used to, right? You how are you going to treat that person? Is that what you're saying with the inner child, or is it because you come to it with a softer heart when you're in interaction with them, or you're seeing this as a human need, like a human need?
Yeah, let me give an example. Women in particular are, thanks to women's liberation, have come so far. I mean, I'm so proud of all of my sisters for how far they've come. But there's a price that sometimes gets paid, and we see this more and more now. Women are becoming almost too strong, and the little girls are getting more and more hidden. And this can be really dangerous. So too often, what we see is women who are like really strong, and they're almost like mothering their men, and the men can become like little boys, in a way, and this is not healthy. So we help these women to also realize they don't have to be strong all the time. They also have this little girl that needs to be reassured, comforted, held. And when they allow their man to actually comfort that little girl, it brings so much balance into the relationship. Did you want to add, Joyce? No? Is okay? Yeah. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. I met a woman recently who was a Tantra practitioner and support for people, and she was going through that process in her life that she was finding she was such a strong woman in so many ways that, she'd get into a relationship with a man and they would just eventually just kind of say, I can't keep up, or I can't, you're just so in charge, so she was working really hard on trying to find, maybe she was calling it that softer part of herself, or to being more vulnerable, to not having to be, the one in the lead or whatever. So that reminds me of that she was really trying to allow that part of her to come through and to shine. And that was an interesting thing for her. And that reminds me of that it's good to know that part is in you, to express that.
That's a really good example. Her partner also had a responsibility, though, to see past all that strength and leadership to seeing the little girl in her. So it's not just a one-way thing. It's also
right.
He had a responsibility too. Well, I wanted to bring up something a little different than what we've been talking about, and that's the sexual relationship. And we always tell people that it's not the most important part of a relationship, but it is important. It's very important. And there's no reason for the sexual relationship to kind of die out. I mean, we're 71, and it's changed from when we were 18 and we were teenagers, and so of course it's changed a lot. But it's changed in a good way, in a deeper, more fulfilling way. But that has taken a lot of communication, and so many couples do not communicate about sex, and they feel like, well, it should just be beautiful. That's how it is in the movies. And if it's not, there's something wrong with us. So many couples just stop. It's shocking to us how many couples just stop altogether having any intimacy. In some workshops that we do, it's 50%. I mean, I don't know the overall in the country. I have no idea, but it's pretty large. It's too large,
mm-hmm.
and so one of the ways to really love your partner first is to really spend some time and appreciate your partner as a sexual being, and appreciate all that they do for you, all that they want to give, because oftentimes all that is overlooked in just focusing on what they don't do. And the second part is just a real loving, very tender communication, and on each person sharing what they need. And this is so important because, like for us, I've had 4 pregnancies. I've gone through menopause. Barry's gone through his own changes. We're older, and so all these changes require a lot of communication, a lot of understanding, and a lot of each one of us expressing, what we're needing. And if couples can do that often, their sexual relationship can still be so beautiful. And I want to give you an example. And I just heard of this. This couple, and the woman was unsatisfied in their sexual relationship, and what she shared was that her partner would kiss her a lot, would be very affectionate when she didn't have her clothes on, but when she had her clothes on, then the affection would go away. And she I mean, it's kind of simple, really, but she wanted to be loved as much with her clothes on as when she didn't have her clothes on. I thought that was so beautiful. And the man had no idea that he was doing that, and she very reluctantly shared that. And I think their relationship is it's going to be very different. That one little change. Mm-hmm. And also, so all right. So we met when we were 18. It was like a flow of sexual activity every day.
We call those a glory days.
Oh, yeah. Let's play that song, Dan.
It was so intense, but now we're in our 70s, and it's different. So we don't have sex every day. We try too often, but it's definitely not every day. But we try and keep the sexual energy alive through a longer kiss, through a longer hug, so that that we call them sensual moments, so that sensuality and sexuality is flowing through our bodies, even though we're not having, that day, probably won't be having sex, but still that energy is flowing through. So because when people just stop and they only have sex, they can go 2-3 weeks, and then that energy, it kind of just goes to sleep. Especially for a woman, and then it's hard to open up that goddess sensual energy again. I don't know what it's like for a man, because I'm a woman. What is it like for a man?
It's a little similar. But here's the thing about, we came up with this concept of sensual or sexual moments. And here's the thing. Most women, it turns out, don't realize that this is possible. They think, well, if I get him aroused, then I have to do the whole thing, or he'll be disappointed or let down. You see? And the truth is, if you have an agreement that you have these sexual moments, but you're really clear that no matter how excited or aroused, it's just a moment. And believe it or not, women actually need to hear this. Men's erections will actually subside without any ill effects.
I love that.
I'm a medical doctor, okay? I know this, all right? But the key here, the key is that these moments keep that energy from going to sleep. And then when you do have the time to have the whole sexual experience, it's not, you don't have to wake all the energy up. It's right there, close to the surface and beautiful.
A lifetime of foreplay, really.
Exactly. Foreplay can go on each day, really, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we've had couples in their 80s, and they're still, that used to seem really old to us, but now it doesn't seem so old. But anyway, and they're still having sex. They're still having these sensual moments, and you can look at them and you can see the relationship is alive in a really beautiful way. There's a real energy flowing between them.
So,
it's probably like a garden, right? If you're not watering the garden, if you're not taking care of it and weeding the garden, it's just not going to produce. It's not going to produce the fruit. There's certain plants that maybe you can kind of hang in there, but we see it all the time too. Or your friends that it's just not a part of their marriage. I'm like, whoa. I mean, I say to myself, really, that's intense. That to me is something that has to be handled if they want to have a vital relationship,
vibrant
and vital for the rest of their life. It just has to be. It's just part of the deal. And as what I hear you both saying is that it's a process. It's not this sexual activity, because if you don't have anything in between, eventually that'll die off too. If you're not watering on a daily basis, you might come in and pour a whole gallon on the plants, and it might survive if it gets watered every 2 weeks, or every month or every 2 months. It might survive, but it's not going to thrive. And then eventually it will die, because it just needs that nourishing on a regular basis. And so appreciate how you both shared that. Sensual moments, that's wonderful.
Yes, that is. And from a not technical but logistical standpoint, so do you make a plan of timing of that? Like, just since you're experienced with the sensual moments, did you say we're going to have only sensual moments for blah blah days, or is it more just how it plays out?
Okay, wait. Is this a scientific experiment
well,
or
I'm
what?
wondering, like, if you're
It's totally spontaneous.
It's very,
and it can happen. It can happen.
I didn't know I married a robot.
no, but meaning.
But I wanted to share one more thing, just in case there's your listeners, that there's times, like, say with prostate cancer, and there's a surgery, and the doctor will actually tell the man, you're not going to be able to have erections anymore, and that for many couples that comes as a death sentence to their sexual relationship. But we have seen that when there is a lot of love poured forth and a lot of communication, that there can still be a sexual relationship, even though the man is not able to have an erection. It's just different, and it's different, and it's important, and it's very healing. So there's other kinds of operations too that sometimes couples just say, well, that's it. We just had the operation, we'll be able to ever have sex again. But you can experiment and use so much love and communication, and you can keep that beautiful energy alive, even though it's different. And Barry, you want to share one more thing?
Well, let me just say that in our new books, To Really Love a Man, To Really Love a Woman, there's a story of some friends of ours, Ron and Donna Sturm. They've both passed on recently, but they gave full permission because they wanted their example to be known and shared. He had prostate cancer and surgery, and, at first, he had given up, but she didn't give up. And she said, even though you can't get an erection, I still need to pleasure you. And she did that with her hands, with her mouth. Even though he couldn't get an erection, and he learned that sexuality is more than his penis. He learned that. And it's such a beautiful story. It'll inspire anyone to read their story.
Yeah, and through him helping her to have an orgasm, he felt like a powerful man again.
Yeah.
Whereas this man was he had a Harley Davidson. He was a real man's man, kind of out there all the time, and he felt like his manhood had been taken away from him. And when he was able to really give her that pleasure once again, he just felt, it made him feel so powerful, it's so beautiful. And so I think our message to all couples is there's a way that you can keep that beautiful energy going in your relationship.
Yeah. So I believe that.
Yes. So Barry, go ahead.
I wanted to bring up. I don't know how much time we have, but
I'll share with you how much time we have. We have exactly 20 minutes. But one thing I know we do have is this connection, this energy that we all have, and we definitely have it with our listeners. They have chosen WDRT. We have chosen to give back to each other, and we have this beautiful flowing relationship, and we so appreciate it. Thank you for choosing 91.9 Heart of Wellness.
Yes, and we are talking with Joyce and Barry Vissell, who are co-authors of the books To Really Love a Man, To Really Love a Woman, among many others. You can learn more about those books and them at sharedheart.org. That's sharedheart.org. And we are in a really beautiful conversation. So if you're just joining us, well...
It is. We're getting real, right?
We're getting real
about the and really sexual, especially if you've practiced any form of tantra, you know that it isn't about the parts. It's about the energy that is shared, and those happen to be some of the buttons we might push. But there's many buttons on a person, and then you can the energy, the connection, the nervous system is every cell of our being, and the energy can be moved and experienced in many parts of the body. So that's a great appreciation and really something that needs to be learned before you have your first prostate, or your prostate experience or whatever other parts it happens to you. This is something that should be learned at a young age, so you can really enjoy the sexual world when you discover it's a lot more than just the parts. It's really holistic connection, right? It's a holistic. It's a full body, full energy experience if you allow it to be, and you're willing to go there.
When we were in high school, for example, there weren't any courses about sacred sexuality.
Nope.
Not even one.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was in part of the North Dakota educational program.
But here's the thing: sexuality can be incredibly sacred. In fact, that's to bring the sacred into the sexuality makes the sexuality even more powerful, even more beautiful. So, for example, we feel the most important part of a relationship is the spiritual connection. And it's not about religion. It's about finding a higher power other than just the two of you. It's about being able to almost like plugging in to something bigger than yourselves. Whatever you want to call it, God, spirit, higher power, higher self, it doesn't matter. It's about using that energy and learning to draw upon that energy. Because when you do that, it connects you more deeply than anything else. And so even in our sexuality, we're drawing that spiritual energy. We're praying that not just our bodies can be joined, but also our hearts, our minds, our souls. Some people laugh about this because they call it foreplay.
Yeah, well, maybe
awesome.
that could get out there. That would really help some of the religions open up a little bit, Get a little foreplay out there.
But we found that's what allows our sexual relationship to be more meaningful, more fulfilling. We will often, it's very important to learn how to keep your eyes open sometimes, to be able to look into your partner's eyes and connect with your eyes. It's important to be able to even speak while you're making love, to be able to let your partner know how beautiful they are, how wonderful they are. All these things are so important. For me, I used to, be able to keep an erection for a long time. I can't now. Okay, I'm 71. What I've learned is sex is so much more than keeping an erection for a long time. It's about, for me, seeing the goddess in Joyce. When I see that goddess and I let her know that she is a goddess, and that it makes the sexual experience so beautiful.
Well, you just freed up the energy of many and many men out there that struggle with what you just said. The time, if they know that they actually can be a wonderful lover, and not only be a great lover, but to receive that love, even if the erection doesn't quite last as long as they would like. It's not about that. That's the whole thing. And if they actually asked the woman, they'd probably find out that is very much the case.
Right. Whoever made those stories the important ones, interesting, right? Like, oh, that's the most important thing. Like, except we never had classes on this. We never had classes on sacredness.
For that matter, how often have you talked to your friends about it? That's
right.
the
taboo
topic, which is one of the most important parts of us staying together as a couple for a lifetime.
Before Joyce speaks, at these couples retreats, we always have a section on sexuality. And for me, the best part is after we have the couples do, these communication exercises, when we get back together as a group, we share openly, and the couples share what they've learned about sexuality, and it helps so much because it's true. Couples not only do they not talk with each other, but they don't talk with a group of couples about these issues. And so, it's just so beautiful, the insights and the ahas. We love that. And so, Joyce, you wanted to say?
Yes. So I wanted to share, because Barry brought in spirituality into the sexual relationship, which is important, but I wanted to share about spirituality in the relationship as the deepest. It's like the nest that can hold everything together, and we feel that if the two of us can have this strength of spirituality, that any couple can have it, because it was our weakest point in our relationship when we first met. We're from the New York area, and Barry grew up in a very, very traditional Jewish family. He was bar mitzvahed. His mother, very devout Jewish woman. And this was not that far after World War II. I mean, we were born after the war ended, but still there were 6 million Jews killed, and there was a very intense pressure on all Jewish children to marry a Jewish partner and have Jewish children to keep the faith going. And this is the East Coast. And I grew up. My parents took me to church twice a week, and it wasn't a really strict church. And my parents were really very open, but still it was a Christian church. And I always thought I would marry someone of my same faith. So we didn't know that we were different religions until we were completely and totally connected and in one. And then when Barry told me, and he found out that I wasn't, we were only 18, and he took my hand, and I still remember it so clearly, and he said, "We can never get married. It would not be right. We can never get married." And I accepted that. But we were only 18, and we were having so much fun, and just so deeply connected that we just continued our relationship and kind of put that aside that's an adult thing. We don't have to think about that. But as we became adults and started finishing our schooling, it became a really big issue. And Barry's parents especially were very, very concerned. But my parents were too, because there weren't any models for someone marrying someone who was Jewish. Nobody could see how it could work. And so there was no support, and there was zero support for us being together and getting married. And we actually ended our relationship because of this, and everyone said, yes, you're doing the right thing. You'll find someone else. But the love was so deep, the connection was so deep. And we went 4 months without any contact whatsoever. And the longing to be together it grew every day. And we both just felt like, wow, there's got to be a way. And we got married, not in the temple, because the rabbi wouldn't do that, but the minister of my parents' church married us and learned Hebrew prayers. I mean, it was all really very beautiful, and yet no one believed that it would last. Mm-hmm. But it was through the time of Barry's affair after that we realized we needed spirituality. We needed that to be the strength of our relationship. And I wasn't going to become Jewish, and Barry wasn't going to become Christian. And I couldn't change my beliefs, and Barry couldn't change his. But we had to come into a place of deep understanding and unity. And we went on a 2-year pilgrimage in our little Volkswagen van after Barry finished his residency. We studied Hinduism and Buddhism, Sufism. We studied paths that don't really have a name. We had several very, very beautiful teachers. And what we came away with was, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be very different. But you can come together in this place of the great presence of love. And that's what we do. We come together and we pray about everything. We pray before we do a workshop, before we did this radio show, before we write about our children, and it's such a deep and very profound and connecting part of our relationship. And so we tell people this is the most important thing to cultivate. The spirituality, that deep energy that flows from heart to heart.
In other words, if the couple only relies on their personal human love, the relationship cannot flourish. There has to be an opening to something bigger. And when there is, when you can sit together, and we do every single morning, we sit together. Sometimes we meditate first in silence, but then we we give thanks for divine love, for the bigger thing, for the bigger presence. And this sustains us in a deeper relationship. So,
yeah, but I wanted to add one more thing. So we're at an age where we have quite a few friends that have died of cancer, heart disease, and so you could only imagine how close we are being together for 54 years. We're amazingly close. And so that concern about what will happen when if one of us dies before the other, and sometimes we can get into a very, very vulnerable place with this. But what we've come to is this place, this spiritual place that our Creator must must have a beautiful plan for us in our process of leaving this earth, and that all we can do is to trust in that there's a beautiful plan, and not worry about how it's going to be and how we're going to feel.
Yeah.
Did you want to share more?
That's
Grace?
beautiful. Yeah. So I want to just elaborate a little bit. If we have another couple of minutes.
Yeah,
About
you got
3
about 4
minutes,
minutes.
3-4
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay. Let me say that one of my deepest vulnerabilities is actually the fear that Joyce will die before me. It's just it's like the fear of a child losing its mother. And I have to honor that's there. And yet the deeper thing, and Joyce has the same fear of me dying, it's the feeling of being left on this earth without our best friend, without our beloved. And yet what we've come to realize is that it's impossible, that we'll always be together. If Joyce dies before me, she will be there in a way that maybe I've never been able to even feel before. But I'll open to that.
Well, that is extremely beautiful, because Paula's not worried about whether I die first. She's worried about whether she has to wipe my butt. So that is the truth. We got some work to do.
I could expound upon that.
We will. But I don't want to end with that. I want to end. But it is. There's this process, this connection that you make, and it is so beautiful. And I really think it comes down. My favorite word these days is trust. Is trust that there is something. It's not a religious thing. Although I think if you are the same religion, it makes it easier in some way. But it's a spiritual thing that you're talking about. This connection, this belief that we come together as one, and we're bigger together than we are separate. And I think that's a big part of that process, and trusting that, maybe even in the past, if there's been other spiritual connections that we've had, and we're on here this earth together to play together, and to know that there's a beyond world too, beyond just the space that we're playing with here. So that we're more than we're a spiritual being having a human experience together.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you both for being lovely, lovely, wonderful interviewers.
Yeah.
Well, you have so much to offer, and we so appreciate you taking the time to join us again. And I want to make sure our listeners know again that they can find you and learn more about your books at sharedheart.org. That's sharedheart.org. And you are just such beautiful role models for everyone out there trying to make it as a couple. And we appreciate all your guidance, and hope to see you in person someday in the near future.
You grow a beautiful garden together, and we so appreciate that commitment. It is an inspiration and an opportunity to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Next
Thank
up,
you very much.
we have Paul Fairchild with The Train and the Nearly Noon News.